My name is James McIntosh. I'm here at the Court of Session in Edinburgh. My wife and I and 4 children indeed are part of the No to Named Person campaign, and we're here today outside the Court of Session because this is the first day of the judicial review against the Scottish Government.
The named person is the appointment of a state guardian by the government to every family in Scotland, and this will affect every child in Scotland and all associated adults with that child.
The idea is that that named person will coordinate between different agencies and raise questions of that child's well-being. They can do that without the knowledge or the consent of the parents if they so wish, and they can access an awful lot of information not only about the child or children but also about the parents if they deem that as appropriate.
Well, I feel strongly about it on 2 points. One, that I feel that I should be able to bring up my children as I see fit and not to a government prescription of what constitutes their happiness and well-being. My second point is the universality of it, is the waste of resources when there are children who really need to be looked after. If the government are wasting money on monitoring my children and those of my friends and those throughout Scotland who don't need this, then the money is not being used smartly. I think the court proceedings today are very significant and hopefully will take us in the right direction in terms of how we'd like to see the law written. And it's being heard, I think, by Lord Pentland, who's a very well-respected member of the court, and I think he will weigh all the arguments very carefully and come to the right conclusions, hopefully.
Well, we're inviting the court to rule on whether the named person legislation is actually outside the Parliament's powers. If I had the opportunity to speak to the government ministers responsible for this, I would say, I'm sorry, you just haven't thought it through. You need to go back to the drawing board. You need to come back with a scheme that properly respects the roles of parents and a system which is better able to focus resources on families that want them and target resources at children who need them. But this scheme fails on both of those fronts.
I would like Healy and Campbell to rethink the government's line on this and to take into account the very real concerns of families right across the country who have serious concerns about how this is going to impact on their lives and on their children.
Well, I have tried to speak to her on a couple of occasions about this, but if I did have the opportunity to speak to her, I think I'd speak to her sort of parent to parent, really. She's a mother. I'm a mother of several children, and I think I'd just approach it on a common sense basis, but largely also on the fact that the government only has a certain amount of money to spend, and if they spend it on everybody, they're going to waste it on the people, for the people who really need it.
We think we have a strong legal case that the Parliament has just got this wrong. You know, nobody doubts their good intentions, but they've introduced legislation which is very invasive of family privacy and which threatens actually to make the child protection system worse by deluging those responsible for child protection with lots of unnecessary information on families where nothing's going wrong.
We're hoping that the result of the judicial review will be a repeal of Part 4 of the named person of the Children and Young People Act, and that will mean that families and parents again will be in charge of the care and treatment of their children. I feel the named person provision usurps parents' rights in the care of their own children and undermines families.
Rhiannon and I understand that there are needy and vulnerable children in Scotland and that they need help, and that there are circumstances and situations where parents of those children need help to bring them up. We're certainly not gainsaying that or saying that that is unnecessary. What we are saying is that, again, this one-size-fits-all blanket approach of the Scottish Government is unhelpful and unnecessary, and moreover is taking resources away from those who are most needy and most vulnerable.